What if I told you some former UConn players absolutely did get better after leaving Storrs? And their success might actually prove Geno Auriemma was right, because going from 2 points per game to 15, or even 18, looks like a coaching disaster. Until you realize that player also went from playing 7 minutes to playing nearly 37 minutes a night. So today, we're separating development from opportunity, and we're ranking the 5 former Huskies with the biggest gap between she became really good and UConn actually needed her.
Prime Field.
Every time a former Husky explodes somewhere else, you hear the same argument. See? Geno buried her. UConn gave up too early. She just needed an opportunity. And sometimes, that criticism can be legitimate, but basketball doesn't work in a vacuum. You can't just compare somebody averaging 2 points at UConn with somebody averaging 15 points at another school without asking, how many minutes did she play? How many shots did she get? Who was ahead of her? And maybe most importantly, what would UConn have needed to sacrifice to create that bigger role? That's the entire point of this countdown. We're not saying these players failed after transferring, quite the opposite. All 5 became substantially more productive. But UConn was competing for Final Fours and national championships, which means the real question isn't whether these players were talented. It's whether Geno should have taken possessions and minutes away from the Stars already winning at UConn. That role-adjusted distinction is the central argument behind the research for this countdown. Let's start at number 5. Courtney Ekmark might be the perfect introduction to this argument. At UConn, she appeared in 61 games, but she averaged only 9.3 minutes, 2.0 points, and 1.2 rebounds. Those numbers scream buried. Until you remember exactly which UConn teams we're talking about. Ekmark was sharing a program with names like Brianna Stewart, Morgan Tuck, Mariah Jefferson, and Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis. That isn't normal competition. That's basically trying to break into an All-America convention. And Ekmark wasn't just sitting around watching UConn win. She was part of the Huskies' 2015 and 2016 national championship teams. Then she transferred to Arizona State and finally received the role she'd been looking for. In 2018-19, she started all 33 games, averaged 28.6 minutes, scored 10.3 points per game, and knocked down 68 threes on 207 attempts, 32.9%. Arizona State also reached the Sweet 16. So yes, Ekmark became a dramatically more productive college player. But what does that prove about UConn? Probably not much. Because Arizona State could give her nearly 29 minutes every night. UConn would have needed her to take those minutes from championship-level players. Those are 2 completely different roster situations. Verdict: great transfer for Courtney, but not evidence Geno mismanaged the original rotation. Number 4 is Mira McLean. And this one needs a correction before we even debate it, because McLean wasn't simply some forgotten bench player who escaped UConn and instantly became good. She played 38 games across 2 UConn seasons, and during her abbreviated 2021-22 stint, her role had already grown significantly. She started 9 of 14 games and averaged roughly 8.9 to 9 points and 6.6 rebounds in 22.4 minutes. That's important. UConn was already starting to trust her. Then McLean transferred to Virginia, and this is where things got interesting. In 2022-23, she averaged 12.2 points, 9.6 rebounds, and an ACC-leading 3.9 offensive rebounds per game. She shot 57.4% from the field. That is real production, not fake production, not just chucking shots. McLean became a monster around the glass. Unfortunately, her season ended after only 15 games because of a knee injury. And later at Maryland in 2025-26, she averaged 4.9 points and 4.1 rebounds as Maryland reached the NCAA tournament's second round. So here's the debate. Did McLean improve after UConn? Absolutely. But does Virginia McLean prove Geno failed her? I don't think so, because UConn already recognized her value enough to make her a starter. And the front court included Aaliyah Edwards, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, and Dorka Juhas. McLean's strength was rebounding and interior activity. She was never a high-volume perimeter shooter, so keeping everybody happy while maintaining spacing and championship-level lineup balance wasn't simple. Verdict: McLean's breakout was real, but this wasn't UConn discovering too late that she could play. They already knew. Now we reach the most dangerous number in transfer debates: points per game. Lexi Gordon averaged only 0.4 points in 3.7 minutes across her 2 UConn seasons. She transfers to Texas Tech, and suddenly 15.7 points per game. Case closed, right? Geno blew it? Not exactly. Gordon played 34.7 minutes per game at Texas Tech, and she attempted 14.4 shots every night. That's an entirely different basketball existence. Her shooting percentages? 36.6% from the field, 29.6% from 3. This is where you have to separate expanded opportunity from overwhelming efficiency. Gordon unquestionably became more productive, but UConn would have had to manufacture a massive offensive role for her. And look at the competition: Katie Lou Samuelson, Nafisa Collier, Crystal Dangerfield, Megan Walker. Who exactly are you removing from the offensive hierarchy? And here's the other uncomfortable piece. Texas Tech finished the 2020-21 season just 10, 15 overall and 5, 13 in Big 12 play. They missed postseason competition. That doesn't mean Gordon caused the losses. Absolutely not. But it does mean her 15.7 points weren't happening inside the same competitive environment as UConn's title expectations. That's the trap. Counting stats can tell you what happened when somebody received opportunity. They don't automatically tell you whether a contender should have created that opportunity. Verdict: Gordon proved she could handle major offensive responsibility. She did not prove UConn should have handed her 14 shots per game. And now we're getting to the 2 cases where the argument becomes much harder. Andra Espinoza-Hunter is where UConn critics finally get some ammunition, because her leap wasn't just bigger minutes producing ugly numbers. At UConn, 7 appearances, 7 minutes per game, 2 points per game. Then, after a path that also included Mississippi State, she arrived at Seton Hall, and in 2020-21, she exploded. 18.6 points, 6.1 rebounds, 36.8 minutes per game. And unlike Gordon's efficiency concerns, Espinoza-Hunter shot a respectable 41.4% overall and an excellent 39.1% from 3. She was taking 15.8 shots per game, yes, but she wasn't simply wasting possessions. She became a legitimately dangerous scorer. So now the Geno criticism sounds stronger. How does a 2-point UConn player become an 18-point scorer? Here's the answer. Because opportunity matters. And timing matters. At UConn, Espinoza-Hunter was trying to establish herself on a roster featuring Nafisa Collier, Katie Lou Samuelson, Kia Nurse, Gabby Williams. Seton Hall could tell her, here's the ball, go create. UConn couldn't realistically tell her, take 16 shots tonight. Not with that roster. And team context matters too. Seton Hall finished 14-7 in her 18.6-point season and missed the NCAA tournament. The following season, she averaged 15.0 points, and the Pirates reached the WNIT championship game. That's a very successful individual career, but we're comparing it with UConn teams chasing national championships, so this is probably the clearest example of a transfer being good for everybody. Espinoza-Hunter needed touches. Seton Hall needed a scorer. UConn already had elite players occupying those possessions. Everybody can be right. Number 1 is Saylor Poffenbarger, and this is where I expect the comment section to explode, because if you're building the strongest argument that UConn let somebody slip away, Saylor might be your best case. At UConn in 2020-21, she appeared in 12 games, averaged 2.7 minutes, scored 0.5 points per game. Basically nothing. Then she leaves. At Arkansas in 2023-24, she's playing 31.6 minutes per game and averaging 10.2 points and an absurd 11.2 rebounds. She even grabbed a school record 23 rebounds against Florida State. 23 from a perimeter-sized player. Then at Maryland in 2025-26, her game evolved again. 9.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 1.9 steals. That's not merely scoring, that's rebounding, passing, defensive activity, versatility. She clearly became a much more complete basketball player. But here comes the other side. Through 140 career games, Poffenbarger's career shooting percentages stood at 35.8% from the floor and 28.8% from three. And now think about the UConn perimeter hierarchy she would have been trying to climb. Paige Beckers, AZ Food, Nika Moule, Caroline Ducharme, among others. Could Geno have developed Poffenbarger into an elite rebounder? Maybe. Could UConn have eventually benefited from her defense and versatility? Absolutely possible. But could they promise her 30-plus minutes while waiting for the offensive game to develop? That's much harder, especially when you're UConn. At Arkansas, that patience was available. The Razorbacks finished 18-15 in 2023-24 and missed the NCAA tournament. At Maryland in 2025-26, Poffenbarger became a valuable starter on a 24-9 team that reached the NCAA second round. So Saylor genuinely improved, maybe more than anybody on this list. But even her story doesn't automatically mean Geno should have torn apart UConn's perimeter hierarchy to create that developmental runway. Her later rebounding and all-around growth were substantial, while her long-term shooting efficiency complicates the idea that UConn obviously should have prioritized her over its established guards and wings, and that's why she's number one. Here's what these 5 careers expose about transfer portal debates. Fans want every departure to produce a winner and a loser. Either the player couldn't cut it, or the coach completely blew it. But sometimes basketball isn't that clean. Poffenbarger needed minutes. Espinoza-Hunter needed shots. Gordon needed offensive freedom. McLean needed a different front court opportunity. Ekmark needed a pathway to start, and those opportunities existed elsewhere. That doesn't mean UConn should have created them, because every extra shot given to one player is a shot taken from somebody else. Every 30-minute role means another player isn't playing 30 minutes. Roster management isn't about asking, could this player eventually become good? It's asking, is their development timeline worth changing what we're doing right now? And when the players ahead of you are Beckers, Collier, Stewart, Samuelson, Fudd, and other All-America level talent, sometimes leaving is the smartest move for everybody. And here's the dangerous part for Geno going forward. The portal era has changed the equation. Players are less likely than ever to spend 2 or 3 years waiting behind stars. So the next UConn transfer who explodes somewhere else might become a much harder case to defend, because now development windows are shorter, roster turnover is faster, and championship contenders have to decide which future stars are worth promising minutes before those stars prove themselves somewhere else. So I want your ranking. Which former UConn transfer makes you question Geno the most? Was it Saylor Poffenbarger, Andra Espinoza-Hunter? Or is there somebody I left completely off this list? Drop your answer below. And here's the real debate question. If a player becomes dramatically better after transferring, but UConn keeps winning without her, did Geno actually make a mistake? Hit subscribe if you want more UConn debates where we go deeper than the box score. Because the next transfer conversation, we're flipping this entire argument around.
Prime Field.